Hey guys, it's Callum from Cagefront here. We have just had UFC 319, the pay-per-view wrap up. And holy, we got some finishes. We got some amazing finishes. We got some amazing performances. We went 6 out of 12 on predictions. There were definitely some big underdog wins. I'll definitely be going through the upset of the night, and as well as upset of the night, we're going to be going through all of the fight card awards in this recap. So giving my fight of the night, finish of the night, performance of the night, upset of the night, and fighter to watch, as well as covering the main event and co-main event. So without further ado, let's get into it. And so there's no better place to start than the main event, which we had Dricus Du Plessis taking on Khamzat Chimaev. And Khamzat Chimaev is an absolute freak of nature. He is untouchable. The one flaw that I thought he would have as to why I picked Dricus winning is that Dricus would be able to survive the early onslaught and then get through, tire Khamzat out, and then take him out on the feet, which he did have some decent moments in the 5th round, but let's cut it there. Aside from that, Dricus got absolutely mauled. Absolutely mauled in this matchup. Khamzat Chimaev showed no cardio concerns. Now, he wasn't full ball just going at it like he has in other fights, like he did against a Gilbert Burns, because Gilbert Burns, a great thing that Din Thomas said in the analysis is that Khamzat in the Gilbert Burns fight had to be very active and really had to make sure that he was getting past Gilbert Burns' guard, which meant that really tired him out because he could not allow Gilbert Burns to recover his guard, and he's so good at doing that. But Dricus Du Plessis just doesn't have that same sort of guard from his back, and that's a big flaw that Dricus had, and Khamzat could completely expose it because, first of all, the strength, that translation to middleweight is perfect. I mean, it looks so much better than what he was doing at welterweight. Granted, he still was completely dominant at welterweight, but when it comes to that weight translation into this fight, Dricus is super strong, but Khamzat Chimaev was just having none of it. Dragged him to the ground every single round. He only had one of his takedowns stuffed in the whole entire fight. I think he landed 8 out of 9 takedowns. And from that, I mean, what do you do? What do you do as a middleweight contender? There's really not much you can. Like, I think Khamzat Chimaev is going to be a heavy favorite against absolutely everyone in the division. The closest ones that I can see to giving Khamzat any form of challenge is Renier Derrida with his grappling background and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, which I'm even less sure about now. Even though Fluffy was dominant over Dolidze, if Khamzat's not having any stamina issues there, that's where it's going to be a concern, because granted Fluffy is strong, but Khamzat Chimaev is just a different beast when it comes to that strength. And Khamzat was so economical in this matchup. The biggest showcase of fight IQ that we have seen from Khamzat Chimaev in this main event, because he was using an economical chain wrestling style. He was just blanketing Dricus. He wasn't trying to advance position too often. Even though he crucifixed him like fucking 5 times, he was still just trying to advance position to the point where he wasn't having to fully tire himself out, and he was making sure that Dricus was using the energy, not himself. So that's where, honestly, Khamzat, I just don't see any flaws within his game within this fight. Of course, I am giving him my Performance of the Night award because he literally had a perfect performance. Aside from a little bit in that 5th round, I think, personally, Khamzat Chimaev 50-41'd Dricus Du Plessis in this matchup. I think he 10-8'd in rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4. What did Dricus land on him in any of those rounds? Nothing. It was like up until halfway through the 3rd round, the commentary team was just kept stating that there was one significant strike, and they were arguing whether that strike even bloody landed. So there's just no shot. Like, I mean, I think it was 50-44 is generous. That's a generous decision to give against Dricus Du Plessis. I think it should have been a lot worse. But performance of the night, 100% for Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, there's a number of contenders next for him, but I mean, who the hell is really going to be taking him out? It's RDR or Fluffy, they're the best chances, but I think we're really clutching at straws here. Dricus was very noble in defeat, you know, very good on the microphone, and also analyzed what was happening with him in terms of why he couldn't get ahead. And that's because Khamzat was one step ahead and was using that economical style, and even Dricus was getting tired. And to that point in the 4th or the 5th round, Dricus has a great gas tank, but when it came to those championship rounds, Khamzat was really able to even out that stamina, and Khamzat just looks so rejuvenated at middleweight anyway. And I said in the predictions, like, if Khamzat Chimaev has his cardio on lock, he will win this fight regardless, because he's just a better grappler. He's just so offensive with that chain wrestling style. Dricus just isn't going to have the tools for him on the ground, on his back, and he just didn't. And that's where that stamina didn't pull through. The stamina was waning anywhere towards the third round. We saw Dricus land some shots on him in the fifth. That's where I was more so confident in those championship rounds that Dricus would be able to take Khamzat out if there was a cardio issue. But no cardio issue. He is untouchable. And don't get me wrong, saying untouchable is definitely a strong word in a sport where people just beat the shit out of each other. But when we look at Khamzat Chimaev and how dominant he is, and especially in this matchup specifically, which we're going to analyze, there are reasons as to why that's emphasized for Khamzat Chimaev. In a pro for him and his team, their game plan that they had, as well as the cons of Dricus's side. The cons that his game plan had, and the cons that he really showed in terms of just holes in his game that Khamzat was able to expose. The two big holes that Dricus showed in this matchup is, for one, he didn't have a great guard game, which we've pretty much touched on already. Didn't have an offensive guard game to make Khamzat work more. But he also didn't press on Khamzat's head when Khamzat was shooting takedowns. Was not trying to break Khamzat's posture, and he was not sprawling hard enough either. Khamzat would still, especially when he had like a single leg and he was really dragged to the ground, he was still had a big clutch on the single leg. DDP wasn't sprawling all the way out, and that's when Khamzat was able to flip the position and then get on top of Dricus and roll him on his back. That is a huge problem there, and Dricus just could not stop the takedowns. Granted, I do see the first part of Dricus's game to try and stop the takedowns. You know, he turned his back to try and hand fight to really just break that lock so that he wouldn't get just ragdolled to the ground, but obviously it just didn't work. Khamzat's grip was way too strong, was really using the body lock takedowns especially well, going off his normal position to get in front of Dricus to then throw him over his hip and just sack him to the ground. He did that so many times in this matchup. And as we know, just his entries are just fantastic. We know that he has like those single strike entries. Like the first round, threw a teep kick, and usually off a teep kick, you kind of like pressing backwards to reset. He teeped, then shot straight for a double straight off the teep, got Dricus to the ground, and he threw really nice jabs in this fight. Khamzat threw a jab, and then straight after the jab just shot, because his takedowns, his blast doubles are faster than his fucking jabs. It's just inhumane. It is ridiculous. And yeah, he just did such a fantastic job in this matchup. Like, I mean, there's not really much we can say in terms of an analytical perspective, but Khamzat, in terms of just his game plan overall, just being that wet blanket, really economical, means that his cardio wasn't so much of an issue, and he just wasn't giving Dricus any answers, because he was half really hunting submission attempts and then half just maintaining position. And the best way to maintain control and keep your stamina up while also draining the oppositions is, if you can get it, is a crucifix position, which he did so many times, because Dricus was having to buck like crazy to try and get out of that, because that's like the only thing you can do to get out of it. And that was really cutting down Dricus' stamina, and all Khamzat had to do was lace up his arm and then just pound him out with elbows and little short pot shots. And I mean, that adds up, and it did. 10-8, 10-8, 10-8, 10-8, just kept going. So honestly, Khamzat, for a performance against a fighter like this, game plan was perfect. Absolutely perfect. And even in the fifth round, when he got in a little bit of trouble, that was from a bad call from Marc Goddard to stand them up. Marc Goddard should not have stood them up. That he was still advancing positions, was still using volume. It was just because it was one of those personal things. Like, he's been doing it for 20 odd minutes, or let's just see something different. Should not have happened. That should have stayed on the ground. I understand why Khamzat protested there, but ultimately just a fantastic performance for Khamzat Chimaev. I think next for him is going to be KO Baralho, most likely. I'll get into more of that in my matchups to make shorts video, so definitely keep an eye out for that one. But Khamzat Chimaev, without a doubt, performance of the night here. He is going to be a bitch of a thing to take that belt away from. Now, on to the co-main event. Holy shit balls. Lerone Murphy, further cementing the fact that the UFC organization and the pedigree of fighters is the best in the world, because Aaron Pico found out the fucking hard way that a debut that high up in those rankings is not the greatest idea. We can ask Patchy Mix, we can ask Patricio Pitbull, we can ask Kai Asakura. We can ask a lot of them. And when we look at Aaron Pico in this matchup, though, granted, I did pick him. I thought he would be able to get like a split decision here. Thought it'd be a very tight fight. I thought his wrestling would be able to come in a lot more clutch, which, to be honest, it did. I think Aaron Pico actually did have a good fight until he got sent to the absolute fucking shadow realm. He actually did have a good fight. He was using those lead lefts to the body really well. He closed the distance straight up, got Lerone down. Like, through that, he was winning the first round. Like, his boxing was good. The takedown was really good. He was able to control him. Lerone got back up, obviously, which was great from him. But, yeah, there's nothing you're really going to be able to do when you're Lerone Murphy and you're timing Aaron Pico stepping on the outside and you're drilling an elbow straight through Aaron Pico's temple. Yeah, you're dropping like a sack of crap there. Like, he just took Aaron Pico out right when he hit him. Like, not when he fell to the ground, just straight out like a light, because he literally used all of his momentum against him. Lerone timed that perfectly. Timed it as Aaron was stepping to the outside, flung his elbow into the space that he was moving into. Yeah, stepping forward onto that elbow, that you're not surviving that, honestly. And it was something that he didn't see coming as well. So fantastic timing from Lerone within that, with his counter striking, as well as the knees up the middle with that counter striking. He hurt Aaron Pico early, and I think that was a big tell for him, is because Aaron Pico was pressing heavy. Lerone lands a really nice knee in the clinch, and then realizes that, oh, Aaron's still coming forward. Like, he just doesn't care. Like, he's just going to come into the firefight, so I'm going to perfectly time an elbow straight to his temple and knock him out for good. And he was out bad, like out stiff as a board. Very rough for Aaron Pico, but I'm happy to take that on the chin as a loss in my predictions. Like, that was a beautiful knockout. Lerone Murphy, you cannot argue with him in terms of making a statement on 3 weeks' notice to fight literally the biggest prospect outside of the UFC coming in. He needs the title shot now, without a doubt. Volkanovski's agreed to it. That's pretty self-explanatory. Easily finish of the night award here. But apparently when there's one spinning elbow, it's just not enough, and we need to move on to the next one. And that is my guy, Carlos Prates, sending Geoff Neal to the shadow realm, man. Oh my goodness. Now, if it wasn't for Khamzat Chimaev, Carlos Prates would be getting my Performance of the Night award, but obviously, Khamzat, you're not really, getting through 4 10-8s in my opinion. So that, honestly, aside from Prates, really just uplifting the main card. Like, oh my goodness, his performance was perfect. Like, Geoff Neal landed a couple of shots here and there, nothing of value. Carlos was using great lateral movement on the outside when he was getting pressed, because Geoff Neal, credit to him, and like he always does, he does press heavy with his boxing, was really throwing some nice combinations, but Carlos was just able to slip his head off the center line extremely well, circle out, really use those stiff straight shots, use the jab, use the knee up the middle, and especially with the teeps as well and the leg kicks. Like, he's just mixing up a full-on Muay Thai game, just a masterclass, just really showcasing those like a million Muay Thai fights that he's had in his past and putting it all into the spinning elbow in the last second of the fight, knocking Geoff Neal out. He walks out to Rick Ross. He comes into the cage. He knocks out Geoff Neal, walk-off KO in the last second. The guy got a 50K bonus, thank the Lord, because that would have been a crime if he didn't. And now he wants to fight in Rio, and MVP wants him, but he also wants Leon Edwards, and I want to see him fight Leon Edwards. Love MVP, but I think he should be staying at middleweight, which we'll get into in a second. But Carlos Prates, I mean, he's just come back from that Ian Gary loss fantastically well. No one has really put him in any severe danger. He is someone that is just a fan favorite that's growing, and he's definitely got me on his side. I absolutely love Carlos Prates. The whole Fighting Nerds gym is just bred differently. All 3 of them got wins on this card. They went 3 for 3. No surprise there as well. But anyway, as we know, Carlos Prates is just one of the most dangerous strikers in welterweight, pretty much in the UFC, to be honest, but pound for pound. So we'd definitely give him the performance if it wasn't for Khamzat, but still made the card that much better. Now, moving on to my Fight of the Night award. I mean, you could give it to, like, a lot of different guys on there. You could give it to Dricus versus Khamzat. You could give it to Carlos versus Neal. You could give it to bloody Lerone versus Aaron Pico for as long as they lasted. But I've got to give it to MVP versus Jared Cannonier because we got a bit of everything in that fight. You know, Jared Cannonier, super durable, just has a lot of heart. He did struggle a fair bit in the matchup, but he also brought it back with heavy top pressure, heavy top control, and he's very strong. MVP said it at the end of the fight. That really wasn't going to be getting out of that top control there. And Jared Cannonier put him into some interesting positions. Almost got a Kimura lock in there, but MVP... classical MVP. Like, it was just a classic performance from him. He was just one step ahead in the striking. And I really like that he was just more aggressive in this matchup than other matchups because he was more so stringing longer combinations together, which, granted, as a point fighter, like, if you're stringing like more than 3-piece combinations together while your hands are that low naturally, it's pretty dangerous, especially with someone that has power as an opponent. But MVP, he really set them up nicely. Like, he put Jared Cannonier, sat him on his ass a couple times, 2 or 3 times, and he just really, he showboated. We know MVP. Showboated a couple times. And yeah, he just put on a really nice performance. I did like it. Granted, there wasn't a finish in there, but it's one of the only fights where we actually got like full 15 minutes because I think we got mostly just pretty bad knockouts and submissions in this card. But yeah, so MVP... honestly, I think he had a great performance. I want him to stay at middleweight, though. I know he's called out Carlos Prates to fight in Rio, and that's a big name matchup to take. He wants those kind of fun fights, so I can understand that. But I'd probably rather see him fight in middleweight, and I would love to see him fight Robert Whittaker. Timelines are going to match up, karate-based style versus shooter box style. I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. I'd love to see those two go against each other because both of them, I'm pretty confident, going to be standing on the feet for that. 3 rounds, 5 rounds, I don't care. Take my money. That is a good striking matchup, and it's one that just makes sense. Now, moving on to my upset of the night, I've actually got to give it to the tough finale winner. The first fight of the card, Joseph Morales taking out Alibi Idris in this matchup. Like, honestly, it was a very impressive matchup because not only was he a 5-1 dog to win this fight, he got a triangle choke, which was like plus 1,000 for him to hit a submission in this. He was a 5-1 dog as it was, but to hit a submission, extremely impressive because he hasn't been known as like a super strong grappler or anything like that. Like, he's really improved his grappling game from like his last UFC tenure to this one, and he's honestly going to be making some waves if he is keeping this kind of consistency in his game. He looked impressive on the feet, in the clinch-based exchanges, in the boxing exchanges, and on the ground, just out-transition Idris completely. I mean, Idris was just way too on throwing the spinning shit. Like, he just threw like a million spinning back fists and elbows, and clearly it works up the card, not down the card. And Joseph Morales, I mean, coming through from UFC tenure before, going on to the tough series, being like one of the first picks, but then, you know, kind of being brushed aside as like an older veteran who's going to be kind of past it, gets through the whole entire Ultimate Fighter, is a 5-1 dog, and submits the top guy on the show. And that's literally just coming back from all that adversity of originally just getting shuffled to the side and leaving the UFC. And now it's come back, looks extremely impressive. And if he's holding this kind of well-rounded performance and can do it in future fights, he's going to be a good contender, like, without a doubt. And I think a great matchup for him next is going to be O'Day Osborne, because O'Day Osborne looked extremely impressive against Steve Erceg, but having both of their more so well-rounded games now, it's going to show who can really push forward and who shouldn't. And I think when it came to his striking-based game, O'Day Osborne has a lot of power in those hands that we got to see. So if he can bypass O'Day Osborne and eclipse him with that striking, I think Joseph Morales is going to be a bit of a threat moving forward. Now, lastly, moving on to my fighter to watch, I've got Baisangur Susurkaev, who was the feature prelim fighter, 24 years old, the other Russian that won, gone 2 for 2 in Khamzat's team, and this kid, whew, good. He is definitely good. He's got a 79-inch reach, and he's got long legs too. And I will say, in terms of his performance as a positive, used really nice striking, just kicked out range. His kicks to the body, like the solar plexus shots and the liver shots, like very, very dangerous. Definitely his best weapons, and the knees as well. But on the ground, I will say, like, that was probably his most impressive point. I think that his timing of his takedowns, getting the fight to the ground, I mean, you'd expect no less from being one of Khamzat Chimaev's main training partners, but got the fight to the ground, was really, really good at transitioning and hunted the rear naked choke finish and got it there. I think it was like the second submission win of his career. So early on in his career, 10-0, he's doing extremely well, but the thing I didn't like about his performance, the showboating, way too much showboating, and he paid for it in the first round. He got a clip behind the temple. Eric Nolan was just having none of it in the boxing exchanges. Eric Nolan's coming off like 3 first-round KOs when it comes to his boxing, so the kid was confident. Susurkaev was confident in this matchup, but he did pay for it a bit. I mean, he got stanky leg at the end of the first round because he just got wobbled like crazy, but made the right adjustments, which is really good for his future prospect fights. Made the adjustments and showed that, oh, I don't need to be on the feet here. I'm going to jump to the ground and completely overwhelm him there, which he did. So 24 years old, 79-inch reach, has got really good kickboxing, and as well as that really good grappling and overwhelming wrestling pressure. At 24 years old and having those kind of training partners like Arman Tsarukyan and Khamzat Chimaev, definitely a fighter to watch out for. Now, I really hope you enjoyed UFC 319, and I really hope you did well on your picks. If you haven't already seen this MMA video here, just check it out on the screen, and please like, comment, subscribe. It goes a long way for the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.